Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones. It's the off season here, and it's been fairly slow on the news front for Purdue basketball since the last time we talked, but Purdue does have confirmation that all of its eligible to return scholarship players will be back. Purdue's made some tweaks to the coaching staff. The transfer portal around college basketball is buzzing and as busy as can be. We're going to talk about all of that and what it means for Purdue here today. If you don't already, follow the show on Twitter at BoilersBeyond. Be sure to do that. Send me in questions. Do it there on Twitter. Email the show, boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com. And be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be here all summer, leading into football season, talking about Purdue basketball, talking about Purdue football. Got some good guests lined up to come on here in the next month or two. Really looking forward to that. We've got a good one for next week. But we're going to start here today. News that is a week old now. Sorry there wasn't a podcast last week. I kind of wanted to wait for more info. I don't really enjoy coming on here to do like a 10-minute, 15-minute podcast about something where there's not a ton else to say. But Purdue did get all of its scholarship players to return from this past season that are eligible. That excludes the 5 seniors that graduated: Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Trey Kaufman-Renn, Oscar Clough, Liam Murphy. No eligibility left for those guys. It has become very clear that Oscar Clough is not going to get another year. There was some hope for that, I think. That's out the window. If there was something there, we'd have heard something by now. No Oscar Clough next year, but that's a boatload to replace, mind you. This is a ton to replace. You are losing an all-time elite point guard who might be the best in Big Ten history, one of the best in the history of college basketball. You are losing the program's leader in all-time three-pointers, an all-around excellent offensive player. You are losing a really unique big weapon. Trey Kaufman-Renn is a really unique player as a scorer, a passer, a rebounder. He did a lot of really good things for Purdue. That's a big loss. Oscar Clough was a nice finisher around the rim, a nice energy guy, really good rebounder. He says goodbye after 1 year. And while it didn't click for Liam Murphy at Purdue, he never really found a path to the floor. You lose someone who is at least capable of really lighting it up from three-point range, even if it's not something that Purdue really benefited a whole lot from. This is a really big one-year turnover, a really big year-over-year turnover. Now, that is becoming more and more commonplace in the sport. Purdue has operated a little differently, and we'll get to that here later on in this episode, but this is not uncommon to lose your top 4 scorers, right? I think they were your top 4. I don't have the stats up, but I think Oscar Clough scored more than CJ Cox did. That's a lot to lose. That's a lot to replace, and you're replacing mostly internally. It's cushioned by the fact that Purdue loses nothing else, and this is where this is so rare in this era of college basketball. How many other teams in the country can say that they are not going to lose a scholarship player to the transfer portal? And I point out that caveat. Aaron Fine was a walk-on. He is headed to Ball State. I presume that is a scholarship spot there. So he's going to go there and try to play. You can't blame him one bit for that. But no scholarship players depart. This is a great referendum on Purdue's culture. This is a great referendum on what Matt Painter has going on at Purdue. This is really unique. This is something that very, very few other programs have. Even I look at a place like UConn that clearly, while Dan Hurley's not everyone's cup of tea, his players love him. His fans obviously love him. That program has won at a really high level, and they lose Eric Ryba out of the middle of nowhere. That's something that Purdue didn't have this year. And there were certainly guys on this roster that would have been highly coveted in the transfer portal. Omer Meyer, CJ Cox, Daniel Jacobson would have been a big deal in the transfer portal. All those guys come back. That's a great, great sign for the buy-in that exists in that locker room, the culture that exists. And culture is the most overused buzzword in the sport, but it's very real what Purdue basketball has. I'm not inside the locker room. I can't provide all this unique insight to what goes on inside the basement of Mackey Arena, but it's very apparent that this is the type of program that every coach across the country is trying to build. Matt Painter has done that at Purdue. It's certainly been a long process, right? The guy's been at Purdue for 20 plus years now. It doesn't happen overnight, but this is pretty unique. This is really, really unique. And I know that's something that Purdue fans take a lot of pride in, as they should. This is an era of college sports where it's really hard to build those connections. It's really hard to fall in love with your program year over year over year. And the continuity and the flow that Purdue has is something that very few other programs have. I think it's a real floor raiser when you're able to retain players like this. It, in theory, takes out the catastrophic situation where you have to go into the transfer portal for a ton and you come away with very little or very few guys that are capable of playing the roles you want. It allows the coaching staff to have a really good idea of what it has in its locker room when all the players report this summer for practice in June. Purdue's coaching staff has a really good idea of what it has in there from the returners. You've seen CJ Cox and Jakari Harris play as complementary pieces over the last few years. Same with Omer Meyer this year. Now those guys are your stars. Now they're your central pieces. Daniel Jacobson, same thing. Raleigh Burgess and Antoine West, you watched every day during their redshirt years. You know what they're capable of, at least internally. You haven't seen it on the floor, but now you get the chance to put that into practice. Jack Benner, ditto. A guy who played last year, battled some injuries, really fought his butt off. Now he plays a bigger role. In theory, that should raise your floor because you know what you have, and you're not trying to go mishmash out of the portal. Now, when you retain like that, it does limit your ability to go on a shopping spree in the transfer portal, and you've seen that from Purdue. The last few weeks have been nuts. It's like half the players in college basketball are in the portal. I don't think that's a huge over-exaggeration. I think within 3 or 4 days it was 42%. That's a lot. That's a lot. This is a program that makes sensible, calculated decisions when it comes to adding from the portal. Because when you have this type of continuity, you don't generally have glaring areas where you need to add. If you look at Purdue's roster right now, we've talked about this. The backcourt, no room in the inn, right? You have Omer Meyer, CJ Cox, Jakari Harris, Antoine West, Luke Ertl's coming in. Jacob Weber and Jack Benner are probably guys. Weber's maybe more of a 3. Benner's a 3-4. That backcourt in the wing position, you've got a lot there. The front court's where you have some more questions. You've seen Purdue add Caden Pierce there, and by all accounts, Purdue's probably snooping around, seeing if it can find another big guy to plug into the equation there. Now, I don't know that it's going to be easy, right? Some of the numbers you're seeing out here are crazy. Evan Miyakawa does great work. I'll plug him here over on Twitter. If you're not subscribed to his free newsletter, you should be, because he had a great article the other day about the prices of big guys in the portal and the demand of portal players. Pretty nuts. It's pretty nuts. It's pretty crazy what you're seeing in the portal here, where a guy like Flory Badunga is rumored to get $5 million. Flory Badunga is a really good player, but he's not a guy you can even run offense through, and he's a $5 million player. You're hearing of guys that are solid players getting $3-4 million bucks. I'm not saying Purdue can't swim in those waters. We really don't know. We really don't. Purdue's not going to come out and admit to not following the quote-unquote rules that exist as part of the House settlement. That's not Purdue's MO. It never has been. It never will be. That's not what Purdue's going to do. I think it's clear that Purdue is in a position where it can retain its players and be competitive enough financially to do that. Because if it wasn't, look, with the way big guys are going, Daniel Jacobson's a $2 million big guy in the portal, at least. The potential is there. The guy played really well the first half of the year and then kind of hit a wall. That guy would have gotten a lot of money in the portal. Purdue's clearly capable of retaining these guys. But I don't know that Purdue is going to go swim in those waters of trying to throw big money around for these guys. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. I don't know. There's not a ton of transparency around the, I don't want to say black market, but the NIL deals that aren't part of revenue sharing that are clearly being used as promised compensation that's not technically allowed, but so many teams are doing it, so many schools are doing it. You know, it's really messy. It's a real gray area right now, but I don't get the sense that Purdue's going to be some highest bidder here. So what is Purdue probably looking to get out of the transfer portal? It's a guy who can come in, play the 5, rebound, get you buckets around the basket, maybe an Oscar Clough type of player. Are you going to get someone that impactful? Are you going to get someone that highly regarded in the transfer portal? I don't know. That seems like a big ask, but you are looking at a situation where if everything goes right, you've got a nice front court. If Daniel Jacobson takes that freshman to sophomore leap that you'd love to see, then he's going to be a really good player for you next year. If Raleigh Burgess is healthy and can come out and give you real energy, real rebounding ability, give you a burst of energy and some production, and if Sinan Juan is ready to come in and contribute from day one, there's no need. But you're banking on that. That's a big ask. It's probably not unrealistic, but it's still a big ask. When Purdue has had these portal ads, they have been very calculated, very fitting for what Purdue needs. Lance Jones was perfect. Oscar Clough was perfect. Liam Murphy didn't turn out to be a slam dunk. Jack Benner kind of beat him out. But when you looked at last year, that was the spot that it made sense to look to add. Don't forget, Purdue has already got Caden Pierce out of the transfer portal. And that is the biggest ad Purdue could have had. Everyone loves to talk about the athletic wings. That's the buzz phrase of the year with Purdue. And you look at Twitter, well, there you go. He's athletic. He can shoot it a little bit. The scalability from the Ivy League to the Big Ten is the question, but that's a really solid addition. He's a plus athlete. He moves well, jumps well, runs well. He should get a higher quality of shot at Purdue. Sometimes with these guys at a lower level, their shooting percentages aren't going to be as high because they're asked to do literally everything on offense at these smaller schools because they're so obviously the best player on their team. Now, he's going to be getting better shots. Teams aren't going to be as focused on him. Can he attack closeouts at the Big Ten level? How well can he handle the ball at this level? Those are some questions that remain to be answered, but there's a lot to like. He should be a solid defender. That's your big ad, and that's already done. That was done months ago. Really, really good stuff. The center position is now your question. Again, I would be really surprised if Purdue got one of the biggest names out there, but you're probably not looking for that. You're probably looking for someone who can come in, can complement Daniel Jacobson, and be a solid piece on what should be a pretty good team. The sustainability of this in the long term is still the $1 million question, right? Because every year the money gets bigger and bigger and bigger. The desire for these teams to go win isn't getting any less. Schools are throwing this money around, desperate for a winner. Purdue is not playing that game right now, Maybe it's possible that Purdue can sustain this forever. Every year that this works, every year that Purdue holds serve here and doesn't lose major impactful pieces, hey, the better it looks. Because to this point, Purdue hasn't lost a major guy to the transfer portal. It hasn't happened yet. Are you playing with borrowed time there? I don't know, maybe. But it's going to be fascinating to see how long this goes fairly unregulated until some type of collective bargaining takes place, congressional action takes place. I don't know, but it is curious in the long run to see where this goes. Purdue did have some coaching staff changes as well. Kenenth Lowe is going to come in and replace Terry Johnson. I think he goes by Kenenth Lowe now. Purdue fans remember him as Kenny, two-time Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year in the mid-2000s. PJ Thompson gets the associate head coach title that Terry Johnson held. Lance Jones and Sterling Carter become the new graduate assistants. Carson Barrett and Isaiah Thompson, their terms ended. Those are 2-year positions. Kenenth Lowe replacing Terry Johnson is the biggest news here. A guy who is part of the Purdue family. And again, this is kind of the uniqueness of Purdue that you see right now. I don't know how many other schools are doing this. I know North Carolina had, up until a few weeks ago, like everyone on staff was part of the Carolina family. That's not the way it is at Purdue necessarily. Paul Lusk didn't play at Purdue, but it's pretty close. It's pretty wild. Matt Painter, Brandon Brantley, PJ Thompson, Stefanovic, both your graduate assistants. Kenenth Lowe is going to be a defensive-minded guy. He's spent the better part of the last decade between Miami, Ohio, and St. Thomas. St. Thomas, if you don't know, they've had a really nice transition at Division I. Pretty good program that he helped find some success there. I don't know. There's been a lot of hand-wringing about Purdue defensively over the last few years, and sure, it's probably fair to blame coaching a little bit on that. But as we've discussed on this program, it's really difficult to expect Purdue to have been great defensively the last couple of years when your personnel hasn't been suited to be great defensively. Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, and Trey Kaufman-Ran are all Purdue legends. All of them had awesome careers at Purdue. None of them were above average defenders. Average defenders might be overstating it a little bit. That's hard. It's hard to form a really good defense when your three best players, the three players you have to have out there, aren't very good on the defensive end of the floor, aren't great individual defenders. I think all of them did some good stuff in team defense, but they're not great individual defenders. Purdue should have a better suited roster to play defense this year. Certainly, on the perimeter, your guards should all be really solid there with Meyer, with Cox, with Harris, with West. Caden Pierce should give you some good stuff there. Daniel Jacobson can be a really good rim protector. That should help. And we'll see what some fresh perspective can do there with Kenenth Lowe. But it seems like he's destined to slot in on that side because PJ Thompson continues his rise. The writing is on the wall for what's to come in the future. I don't know whether that will ever be explicitly stated or not. It's not the same trend that it used to be. I know Creighton just did that with Alan Huss being the coach in waiting for Greg McDermott. I don't know if Purdue will ever do that, but everything you see here points to PJ Thompson succeeding Matt Painter whenever that time comes. It's been a terrific rise for him. He is a star in the making. He's very well regarded around the sport. Certainly, he is very well regarded at Purdue, and it's just a matter of time. And who knows? It could be 10, 15 years down the road. I have no clue. But it's just a matter of time before PJ Thompson likely is running the Purdue program. Now, you'd have said the same thing about Bruce Weber 25 years ago, 30 years ago too. So I don't know. But all signs are pointing to PJ Thompson continuing his rise, and he'll be running the offense still. And then the graduate assistant hires are really interesting to me too, because they were both 1-year graduate transfers at the end of their careers that really embraced Purdue, really embraced the program. Both were really high energy guys. Lance Jones is the perfect embodiment of how much a fan base can fall in love with a player in one season. He endeared himself and connected to Purdue fans as well as anyone could. It was awesome what he did. That's a rarity. It was really, really cool, really, really unique. He's an all-timer. He really is. And Sterling Carter, while the team didn't have as much success, he'll always be remembered for having a huge day against Indiana. And that always goes really well for fans. Again, a ton of continuity here. That is the biggest thing to take away from this, is just what Purdue has right now is really unique. You can make an argument that it's not guaranteed to be a smashing success, and I agree with you. But I will say this, Purdue is probably the program in college basketball that understands itself as well as anybody, that understands what works at Purdue and what doesn't work at Purdue as well as anybody. Matt Painter has this thing dialed in. And I think when you look at the idea of like operating efficiently, operating at peak capacity, I think Purdue is doing that as well as anyone in the country right now. This has been a great run for Purdue over the last 5 years. And while a lot of the faces on the floor from those teams are gone, I think this program has a really good feel on what it wants to be, what it's capable of being, and has a good vision for that here moving forward. I wanted to close with a couple of questions I got. Some clarification questions. Is Daniel Jacobson going to get the medical red shirt for last year, or is he a true junior? If he is a true junior, what does that do for his development plan? Yeah, so Daniel Jacobson is going to technically be a true junior. You don't really apply for medical red shirts until the end of your time, and then it's either granted or not. The NCAA doesn't grant medical red shirts as they happen. There is no reason to believe that Daniel Jacobson's medical red shirt will be declined. And that is one that, the NCAA lost a medical red shirt court case with the Trinidad Chambliss. I don't think it's going to be dying to fight one on a player who broke his leg like 4 minutes into the second game of the season as a freshman. So I guess your answer is, yes, he is going to get the medical red shirt from his first freshman year, but when you look at the roster next year, he will be listed as a junior. In terms of his developmental plan, I don't know that you're really like building up for his fifth year necessarily. You're trying to get him going as quick as possible. This past year was kind of classic freshman stuff. He did some really good things in the first half of the year, and then as Big Ten play got going, teams started scouting him better, probably started to wear down a little bit. He didn't play the year before, remember. It started to go a little. That's pretty common for freshmen. Purdue's had some guys come in and be really, really good as freshmen recently that probably have skewed the perspective of that, but this is pretty common. I don't think it does anything to his developmental plan either way, and I would be utterly, utterly shocked if he didn't get that medical red shirt granted. And then, how many designated student athletes did Purdue declare? Who were they? Was Aaron Fine one? No one seems to know, and nobody who has contact with the people who do know seems to want to ask. I guess I will follow up on this with, I don't know the exact number. I mean, I'm trying to think. Like, Jace Rail would have been. Aaron Fine probably would have been. Jack Lusk probably would have been. Sam King probably would have been. I feel like everyone who was a walk-on was just deemed a designated student athlete. And for those unfamiliar, when the House settlement came through and the idea of roster limits versus scholarship limits became a thing, if you were an existing walk-on, you got grandfathered in as what's called a designated student athlete, meaning you didn't have to you didn't have to go through the roster limit thing. You weren't going to get cut. You could be grandfathered onto the roster and not count against the 15 roster limit. I'll say this much. I really don't think this is a big deal. Purdue's not going to let walk-ons get in the way of adding pieces that it wants to add. I know Purdue has room for another guy. If Purdue can find that right piece at center, it's going to add him. So I understand the question. I don't have a concrete answer, but Purdue's not going to be in danger of a designated student athlete or not putting its roster in jeopardy. That's kind of all I'll say. That's all I've got for today, guys. Part of the joys, I guess, of covering a program that has a ton of continuity is that you don't really have to deal with a ton of breaking news, a ton of moving parts this time of year. So next week, we're going to have Jeff Shanley on, talk about the past few years, this past year of Purdue basketball, and look ahead. It'll be a fun conversation with him. Subscribe on wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on Twitter at BoilersBeyond. I am looking forward to it. Send me questions you want me to ask Jeff. Until next time, guys, take care. This episode was brought to you by me, yes, me. When I'm not watching sports, or more accurately, talking about them, I'm talking insurance with the people of Indiana. As an agent with Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance, I want to help you protect what you've worked hard to achieve. From home and auto to life and business insurance, I'm here to help you. Give me a call at 317-846-5861 or email me, jordan.jones@infarmbureau.com, and let's protect you from life's everyday risks.